British Prime Minister Winston Churchill once said, "We make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give." Perhaps the most profound measure of the impact of philanthropy is the effect it has in a community and on an individual life. In an effort to celebrate the global impact of philanthropy, one of the largest philanthropic organizations in the world came up with a unique idea. The Rockefeller Foundation commissioned acclaimed American artist Phil Hansen to interpret the art of philanthropy. And for Hansen, it's all about taking a step back to take a look at the big picture.
There's this quote from Orson Welles that the greatest enemy of art is the absence of limitations, and I think he nailed it exactly. Because if you have absolutely no limitations, you can just go absolutely anywhere, and the mind runs wild, and we don't have something to focus on. And I really believe that, not just in life, but in art, that having the limitation gives you the boundaries to be creative. Doing a crowdsourced piece of art is, in many ways, one of the biggest limitations. Because as an artist, you have parameters that you think you can work within, but then once you put it out there, your success or failure really depends on what other people do with it.
I'm asking people to call me or email me and share a story about a limitation in their life.
And if they don't connect with the idea, then I'm down one path. But if people really dig into it, send me stories, and contribute to a piece, then I can finish. I can continue down that path. And then within that, there's discoveries.
Okay. Well, I will shoot you a text when I'm going to write it into the picture, okay?
When the Rockefeller Foundation contacted me, we were trying to find the best way to bring their message, bring their audience, and to connect it with art. And it really seemed like a natural way to do some large-scale, crowdsourced piece that anybody around the world could contribute to. We wanted this to really be a wide open piece of art, where we could have stories about how philanthropy had impacted somebody's community, their life personally, or where they believed that philanthropy could go in the future. We created a website that people could submit their stories through, and also what was unique is we had a live webcam feed. And so I would send a message to people right before their story was written, and they could actually watch as I wrote their story live into the picture. There were over 90 different countries that we had stories come in from, and there's over 600 stories in the picture total. When people get to see their story written into the art, it's such a different experience for people. You know, as you can imagine, we always see art on a wall. That's how we traditionally experience it. And so doing a live feed where people are able to see their story written, they have such a different connection to the piece of art. You know, because they can see their one little piece. And then the beauty of it too is that with my work, it's all very fragmented, it's all very small. So when the camera backs up, it's a completely different experience. So I gave a TED Talk last year that was focused on my story of a limitation in my life, and it was really looking at limitations and how limitations can actually drive creativity.
So when I was in art school, I developed a shake in my hand, and this was the straightest line I could draw. Now, in hindsight, it was actually good for some things like mixing a can of paint or shaking a Polaroid. But at the time, this was really doomsday. This was the destruction of my dream of becoming an artist.
In high school, I started doing a lot of pointillism. Pointillism is just using dots, lots and lots of little tiny dots to be able to make a picture. And what happened is occasionally I'd be too tired or too much caffeine, as any high schooler is, and my hand would shake a little bit. Well, when my hand would shake, I'd hold the pen even tighter to prevent it from having little tadpole-looking things. And that just became a cycle where my hand would shake, so I'd hold the pen tighter, and then my hand would shake more, so I'd hold the pen even tighter, and eventually there was joint issues. I couldn't drive with my right hand. It would just hurt to pick anything up. And so the shake developed out of literally just doing pointillism, doing art. And I was in art school at the time, and I ended up dropping out of art school, and then I quit art completely, and I left art, went on with my life, and never thought it'd be a part of my life again.
But after a few years, I just couldn't stay away from art, and I decided to go to a neurologist about the shake and discovered I had permanent nerve damage. And he actually took one look at my squiggly line and said, well, why don't you just embrace the shake?
Embracing the shake has changed my approach to art, but it's also changed my approach to creativity and to life, really, for that matter. Because it really was focusing on the problem for a long time. And then once I embraced the shake, it really became focusing on the solution. And creativity thrives in uncertainty. And by embracing the shake, I was diving into uncertainty because I had no clue what was going to happen. It could be a total failure, it could just all fall apart and I never do art ever again the rest of my life. But within that uncertainty, there was so much potential for creativity.
When I think back to my 3 years away from art, away from my dream, just going through the motions, instead of trying to find a different way to continue that dream, I just quit. I gave up. And what if I didn't embrace the shake? Because embracing the shake for me wasn't just about arts and having art skills. It turned out to be about life and having life skills. Because ultimately, most of what we do takes place here, inside the box with limited resources. Learning to be creative within the confines of our limitations is the best hope we have to transform ourselves and collectively transform our world.
Where I thought I would find success in art, turns out that I was really focused on a skill. I was focused on, if I do this really, really well, then things are going to happen. And when I embraced the shake and went into uncertainty, it really opened up like, well, what would happen if I made art with worms? What would happen if I made art with footprints? And that really kind of got me excited because then I started to see pointillism in everything. I started to see that fragmentation. My view of the world as definitive things began to change, and I really saw the potential in uncertain outcomes and not knowing what I'm getting into and just going down that road because that's where creativity happens. You know, I've always kind of wondered if getting the shake was worth it. And because, you know, I had this path laid out, I had a goal for what my life would be, and the shake completely altered that and changed it. And there were certainly times in my life where I would have thought that, you know, absolutely not, the shake was not worth any of it because I was away from art for so long. You know, there was a long time where I was just kind of going through the motions of life. I didn't really know what I wanted anymore. But looking back now, absolutely. Absolutely the shake is worth everything. And even if it gets worse when I'm older, you know, there's always ways to work around things. And actually, there's one funny story is that I got the second date with my wife because of the shake. Because we were having coffee and my hand was shaking as I was drinking my coffee and she thought I was really nervous. And so I ended up getting my second date because of the shake, and then we fell in love and happily ever after. So yes, I wouldn't change the shake for the world at this point. I think the biggest thing that philanthropy does with limitations is it provides the push. Because almost every situation, every limitation that we deal with in our lives, we need some kind of a push to overcome it. It's that little bit of extra push that people need to break through to completely change their life. And I feel philanthropy does this in a wonderful way for huge amounts of people.
And that's it for us this week. Join the conversation with us on social media. We are CCTV America on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. All of tonight's interviews can be found online on CCTV America's YouTube page. And let us know what you'd like us to take full frame next. Email us at fullframe@cctv-america.com. Until then, I'm Mike Walter in Los Angeles. We'll see you next time.